They called him a coward, not as a joke, not behind his back,
Your eyes peeled.
not in private. They said it out loud, in front of everyone, with laughter still in the air. And less than 1 hour later, those same men were screaming into broken radios, pinned down, bleeding, surrounded in a valley that was never supposed to fight back. The only man who could see what was happening,
Target acquired.
the only man who could still reach them, was the one they had already dismissed. Before this story goes any further, take a moment. If you respect soldiers who carry invisible weight, if you believe courage isn't always loud or physical, and if you understand that modern war is fought as much with decisions as it is with weapons, subscribe to this channel, because the stories told here aren't about perfect heroes. They're about moments where one decision separates survival from silence. This is one of those stories. Camp Bastion, Helmand Province, Afghanistan. The afternoon heat pressed down on the base like a weight, mixing with dust and the constant background noise of generators, rotors, and distant artillery. Echo platoon stood near their vehicles, body armor strapped tight, weapons checked and rechecked. They moved with the relaxed confidence of men who had survived enough missions to believe they always would. Near the edge of the briefing area stood Staff Sergeant Ethan Cole, United States Navy, Naval Intelligence, Unmanned Systems, ISR, and Cyber Operations. He wore desert camouflage like everyone else, but nothing about him blended in. He wasn't joking. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't checking his rifle, because he didn't carry one. He stood quietly beside a portable control station, eyes fixed on live drone imagery scrolling across multiple screens. Captain Ryan Mercer noticed him immediately. Mercer was everything Ethan wasn't. Infantry through and through, broad shoulders scar along his jaw, confidence built from years of ground combat. His voice carried naturally, and his presence bent rooms toward him. Mercer stared at the screens for a moment, then laughed. "So this is Overwatch?" he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is what higher command thinks keeps Marines alive now?" A few Marines smirked. Others chuckled. Mercer turned toward Ethan. "You fly this thing?" "Yes, sir," Ethan replied evenly. Mercer looked him up and down. "You ever been shot at, Sergeant?" Ethan paused for half a second. "No, sir." Mercer nodded, almost satisfied. "Didn't think so." He tapped the screen with his finger. "While my men walk through villages and valleys, you sit here flying a camera." He shook his head. "Chair warrior. Soft." The laughter grew. Then Mercer said the word slowly, clearly, making sure it landed. "Coward." The air shifted. Some of the Marines stopped smiling. Others looked away. Ethan felt the word hit, sharp and public, but he didn't react. Because reacting would mean losing control. And control was the only thing that kept people alive. He swallowed once and stayed silent. Ethan Cole had learned early that volume didn't equal strength. He grew up in Fresno, California, in a small house that felt emptier every year after his father died. Mark Cole had been a Navy reservist, attached to convoy security overseas. He wasn't special forces, he wasn't famous, he was reliable, and one day he didn't come home. Ethan remembered the knock on the door, the uniforms, the folded flag. He remembered watching his mother sit at the kitchen table long after the officers left, staring at nothing. That moment taught Ethan something permanent. War didn't care how loud you were. It cared whether you paid attention. Back in the present, Ethan leaned closer to the screens. Something wasn't right. Heat signatures flickered where there shouldn't be any. Signal traffic spiked and vanished too cleanly. Movement patterns repeated with discipline. This wasn't random. He keyed the radio. This wasn't random. He keyed the radio. "Echo Actual, this is Overwatch. I'm detecting irregular emitters along your planned route. Recommend we pause and reassess." Mercer didn't even look at him when he replied. "Negative. We're moving." Then colder. "Just give us the feed, Sergeant. Stay in your lane." Echo platoon mounted up and rolled out. Ethan watched their icons move across the terrain map, straight toward the red markers only he could see. Echo platoon moved out under a sun that offered no mercy. The valley stretched ahead of them like a scar cut into the land, narrow, uneven, bordered by high ground on both sides. The kind of terrain every infantryman learned to distrust early in his career. But confidence has a way of dulling instinct. From his control station, Ethan Cole watched the platoon advance in real time. The drone's camera glided silently above them, its shadow invisible against the dust and rock. To the Marines on the ground, the valley looked empty. To Ethan, it looked wrong. Heat signatures appeared and vanished near ridgelines, too quick to be livestock, too coordinated to be coincidence. Small signal spikes flared across the spectrum, then disappeared before standard monitoring systems could lock onto them. Someone was probing. Someone was testing. Ethan adjusted filters, slowed the feed, layered thermal over visual. The picture sharpened. What he saw made his stomach tighten. This wasn't a patrol waiting to happen. This was a trap being allowed to close. He keyed the radio again, keeping his voice calm. Echo Actual Overwatch. I'm seeing intermittent heat signatures on the North Ridge and signal traffic consistent with mobile relay equipment. Recommend alternate route or immediate halt. There was a pause. Then Mercer answered. His tone clipped. Overwatch, we've been in worse. Terrain's always noisy. We'll push through. Ethan hesitated. Pushing again risked being labeled difficult. Or worse, ignored completely. But the data didn't lie. Sir, Ethan said, choosing his words carefully. This pattern matches coordinated movement. This isn't environmental. Mercer exhaled sharply into the mic. Noted. Maintain Overwatch. That was it. Not a discussion, not a debate. The decision was made. Ethan leaned back slightly, eyes never leaving the screen. He watched the Marines continue forward, step by step, deeper into terrain that favored anyone waiting patiently above them. Ethan had been ignored before. Drone operators learned early that their warnings often sounded abstract to people who lived with dirt under their boots. Infantry trusted what they could touch, what they could hear, what they could smell. Ethan trusted patterns, signals, silence where noise should be. And right now the silence was screaming. He began logging everything automatically. Timestamps, coordinates, signal anomalies. Not because he expected anyone to read it later, but because deep down he already felt where this was going. The drone picked up movement again. 3 figures, then 5, then more. They hugged terrain contours, staying just below ridgelines, pacing the Marines' advance like hunters matching prey. Ethan whispered under his breath. They're shadowing you. He checked the comms. Still clear. For now. But the jammer signature was moving closer. Someone knew exactly when to flip the switch. Echo platoon slowed near a bend in the valley. The terrain narrowed. Natural choke point. Ethan felt a cold pressure settle in his chest. This was it. He tried one last time. Echo Actual Overwatch. I strongly advise you hold position. I'm detecting multiple coordinated elements converging on your location. This time Mercer didn't answer immediately. The radio crackled. Then, Overwatch, we're already committed. Keep eyes up. Committed. The word echoed in Ethan's head, committed to a decision made without the full picture. The jammer signature spiked suddenly. Ethan's screen flickered, then stabilized, but the warning was clear. Seconds remained. The explosion came without warning. The lead vehicle vanished in a violent bloom of fire, dust, and twisted metal. Ethan flinched instinctively, even though he was hundreds of miles away. The drone feed shook as shockwaves rippled through the valley. Gunfire erupted instantly, not scattered, not reactive. Disciplined, overlapping fields of fire from elevated positions on both sides. This was a textbook kill zone. The radio exploded with voices. Contact front. Contact left. RPG, RPG. A second explosion tore into the rear element. Echo platoon was boxed in, pinned. Ethan's heart rate spiked, but his hand stayed steady. Training took over. He zoomed out, expanding the view. Enemy fighters poured into positions Ethan had marked minutes earlier. They moved with confidence. They knew exactly where the Marines would be. The jammer activated fully. Long-range comms dropped. Higher command disappeared. The platoon was alone. Mercer's voice cut through the chaos, strained but controlled. Overwatch, we're taking heavy fire. I need eyes now. Ethan answered immediately. I have eyes, sir. There was a pause, just long enough to hear gunfire in the background. Then tell me what we're dealing with. Ethan swallowed. He spoke carefully. You're surrounded. Multiple enemy elements on elevated terrain. At least one mobile jammer and a centralized command node controlling movement. Silence. Then Mercer spoke again, lower now. Can you see a way out? Ethan looked at the screen. He saw wounded Marines pinned behind rocks. He saw ammo counts dropping. He saw enemy fighters repositioning to tighten the noose. There is a way, Ethan said, but it's not authorized. Ethan immediately attempted to reach higher command. Nothing. The jammer was blocking everything beyond local comms. He rerouted, tried backups, still nothing. For the first time since the mission began, Ethan truly felt alone. No commander standing behind him, no officer to defer to, no one to share the weight. Just him, and the knowledge that every second of hesitation cost blood. Mercer's earlier words echoed back. Coward. Ethan felt anger rise. Not hot, not explosive, but sharp and focused. Cowards avoided responsibility. Cowards waited for permission when lives were on the line. He opened the system controls. Restricted access warnings popped up immediately. He stared at them. He knew exactly what they meant. Unauthorized intervention, formal investigation, possible court-martial, career over. He thought of his father, of the flag, of the Marines bleeding in the valley. Ethan made his decision. He overrode the restrictions. The system screamed warnings across the interface. He acknowledged them without hesitation. Then he went to work. First, he launched a secondary micro-drone, smaller, lower, almost invisible. It slipped through the terrain, mapping enemy positions in real time. Thermal overlays lit up the screen. Enemy fighters glowed like sparks against the rock. Ethan marked every single one. Next, he focused on the signal traffic. The enemy relied on cheap encryption, effective against basic monitoring, useless against someone trained to listen deeply. Ethan injected himself into their network. Suddenly he could hear them, commands, corrections, confusion. They realized something was wrong. Their voices sharpened. Ethan didn't smile. This wasn't about satisfaction. It was about speed. Ethan rerouted the data feed directly to Echo Platoon's handheld systems. One by one, red outlines appeared on Marine displays. Enemy positions, distances, angles. A Marine's voice came over the radio, stunned. I can see them, all of them. Mercer didn't speak for a moment, then quietly. Cole, is this you? Yes, sir, Ethan replied evenly. Stay low, I'm not done yet. Ethan guided the Reaper into position. He selected the enemy command node. He verified civilian absence, twice. Then he acted, one precision strike. The explosion was contained, surgical. The enemy network went silent instantly. Gunfire lost coordination, then momentum, then stopped. The ambush collapsed in on itself. Echo Platoon was still standing. Alive, the gunfire faded unevenly. Not all at once. One position went silent, then another, then another. What remained was the sound of wind cutting through the valley and the distant crackle of small fires burning where vehicles had been hit. Echo Platoon didn't cheer. They didn't celebrate. They checked their wounded. They counted their men. That was how soldiers marked survival. From the control station, Ethan Cole stayed locked in, eyes scanning every angle, every heat signature, every possible movement that might signal a second wave. None came. The enemy was gone, not retreating. Gone. Ethan leaned back slightly, allowing himself one breath, just one, because the adrenaline hadn't left his body yet, and he knew better than to relax too soon. Over the radio, voices steadied. Medic, over here. Cover that ridge. We've got 2 wounded but stable. Mercer's voice came through again. Less sharp now, more grounded. Overwatch, and we're consolidating. Ethan nodded to himself. Copy that, sir. I'll maintain full coverage. For the next 40 minutes, Ethan watched every inch of terrain around Echo Platoon as they stabilized casualties and prepared for extraction. He guided them away from secondary danger zones, flagged potential threats before they became problems. For the first time since the mission began, his warnings were followed immediately, without question, without hesitation. When the last helicopter lifted off and Echo Platoon was safely airborne, the control station finally went quiet. Ethan removed his headset slowly. His ears rang, not from noise, from the absence of it. He sat there for a moment, staring at the darkened screens. His hands were steady now, but his chest felt tight. Because survival was only half the story. The other half always came later. 2 hours after the mission ended, Ethan was escorted away from the control station. His access was revoked without explanation. No anger, no accusation, just procedure. He understood immediately. This was the part no one celebrated. This was the cost. He was led into a small room with bare walls and a single metal table. No rank insignia on the walls, no flags, just silence. Ethan sat down and waited. Time passed differently in that room. Minutes stretched, then hours. Ethan replayed the mission in his head again and again. Every decision, every click, every moment where he could have hesitated. He didn't regret acting, but he understood what it meant. In the military, intention mattered, but procedure mattered too. Breaking the chain of command was never invisible. 3 days passed, no updates, no contact. On the 4th morning, the door opened. A lieutenant colonel stepped in, followed by a legal officer, and behind them, Captain Ryan Mercer. Ethan stood immediately. No one told him to sit. The lieutenant colonel spoke first. "Staff Sergeant Ethan Cole, United States Navy." "Yes, sir. You are aware this is a formal review of your actions during the Echo Platoon engagement?" "Yes, sir." The colonel nodded. "Did you execute ISR to strike guidance and cyber intrusion without explicit authorization?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "Yes, sir." "Did you knowingly override system restrictions and violate established command authority?" "Yes, sir." The legal officer watched closely, pen hovering over paper. The colonel leaned back slightly. "Why?" Ethan lifted his eyes. Because Echo Platoon was surrounded, jammed, and taking casualties. There was no time to regain command connectivity. A pause. "I assessed that waiting would result in additional fatalities." The room stayed quiet. Then the colonel turned toward Mercer. "Captain," Mercer stepped forward. He looked different, less rigid, more human. "I dismissed his warnings," Mercer said. "I assumed I had the full picture. I didn't." He swallowed once. "That mistake is on me." The legal officer flipped through documents. No civilian casualties recorded. No friendly fire incidents. Enemy command and control neutralized. Mission objectives preserved. The colonel closed the folder. "Rules were broken," he said evenly. Ethan felt the words settle into his chest, but lives were saved. The colonel paused, then continued. "Staff Sergeant Cole, you will receive a formal reprimand for acting outside authorization." Ethan nodded. He expected that. "And," the colonel added, "you will also receive a commendation for valor under extreme pressure." Ethan looked up slowly. That part he hadn't expected. The meeting ended without ceremony. No handshake, no speech, just resolution. Outside the room, Mercer stopped Ethan. The base hummed quietly around them. Generators, footsteps, distant rotors. Mercer removed his helmet. "I owe you an apology," he said. Ethan waited. "I called you something you're not," Mercer continued. "I was wrong." He looked directly at Ethan. "I don't care that you don't carry a rifle. When it mattered, you fought." A pause. "When my men go out again, I want you watching them. Not an order. A request. One soldier to another." Ethan nodded once. That was enough. Word spread quietly through Echo Platoon, not officially, not through reports, through looks, through nods, through the way Marines spoke to Ethan differently afterward. No laughter, no dismissal, just respect earned the hard way. Ethan returned to his station days later. Same screens, same controls, but the weight felt different. He wasn't invisible anymore. Weeks passed. Operations continued. Missions came and went. But something had changed in Echo Platoon. Not officially, not on paper. In the way soldiers look at each other when words are no longer necessary. Ethan Cole noticed it the first time he walked into the Joint Operations area after returning to duty. Conversations didn't stop, laughter didn't fade, but eyes met his differently now. Not curious, not dismissive. Aware. The Marines of Echo Platoon had seen what his decisions looked like when everything went wrong. They had felt it in the sudden clarity of their displays. In the moment, the battlefield finally made sense again, in the seconds where survival replaced panic. Ethan never brought it up. He never corrected the record. Because respect in the military isn't something you argue for. It's something others carry quietly. One evening, as the sun dropped low over Camp Bastion, Ethan sat alone near the edge of the operations area, reviewing archived footage. He paused the feed at a familiar frame. The valley, the moment before the ambush. He studied it carefully. He knew now that even if he had convinced Mercer earlier, the outcome might not have changed. Some lessons only exist on the other side of consequences. Captain Mercer approached without announcement. No entourage, no authority in his posture. Just a man who had seen enough. "You ever think about that day?" Mercer asked. Ethan nodded. "Every time I sit down here." Mercer was quiet for a moment. "I used to think courage was about moving forward no matter what," he said. "About momentum, aggression." He exhaled slowly. "I didn't understand how dangerous that mindset could be." Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. Mercer continued. "You saw something I didn't, and I ignored it because it didn't fit how I thought war was supposed to look." He turned to Ethan. "That almost got my men killed." Ethan finally spoke. "We all bring different pieces to the fight, sir." Mercer nodded. "Yeah," he said. "I'm starting to understand that." Before leaving, Mercer stopped. "There's another operation coming up," he said. "Different terrain, different unit." He hesitated. "I asked if you could stay on our overwatch for it." Ethan looked up. "And?" "They said it's not standard." A faint smile crossed Mercer's face. "So I told them it doesn't have to be." Ethan nodded. That was all that needed to be said. Late that night, Ethan sat alone again. The base quieted in the way only military installations ever did. Never silent, but subdued. He thought about his father, about the convoy that never made it back, about how different modern war looked from the one his father had known, and how, despite all the technology, the cost was still paid in people. Ethan knew he would never be celebrated the way infantry heroes were. There would be no photos, no interviews, no visible scars, just decisions, and the knowledge that some of those decisions would stay with him forever. That was the price of fighting from a distance. You never escaped the images. The next mission went smoothly, not because the enemy was weaker, but because arrogance was gone. Warnings were listened to, questions were asked, decisions were shared. Echo Platoon moved differently now, not slower, smarter. Ethan watched from above, his drone silent against the sky. He didn't need to prove anything anymore. He had already crossed the line that mattered. They called him a coward because courage didn't look like they expected. It didn't carry a rifle. It didn't shout orders. It didn't stand at the front of a formation. It sat alone. It watched carefully, and when everything else failed, it acted. Modern war doesn't belong to the strongest voice in the room. It belongs to the person willing to make the hardest decision when there is no one left to ask. If this story changed the way you think about courage, if it reminded you that not every warrior fights the same way, subscribe to the channel, because some of the most important battles are fought in silence, and some of the bravest soldiers never fire a shot.